So this is going to be my first official YouTube video for this channel where I talk about boxing in the month of June. I'm going to try to do one of these videos every month where I just talk about what happened in the past month and where I would like to see the fighters who fought go in the future and how I would like to see the sport of boxing go in the future. I think something like this is important just because as someone who got in the sport somewhat recently, it was kind of difficult for me to get a grasp on who the important players are and what fights I should be watching, and just knowing which fighters are important to follow and how the landscape is changing is something that I think is important. So I'm going to try to make videos like this in order to help people stay updated on who the current champions are, what the title scene is looking like in each division, and just talk about the state of boxing month to month. So the first fight I want to talk about was between Chris Billiam-Smith and Ryan Rozicki. This was actually a fight for Zuffa Boxing, which I know is very controversial, but the fight itself was extremely entertaining, and I think it actually has a chance to be considered fight of the year. So I highly, highly recommend you check it out if you haven't. Chris Billiam-Smith put an absolute beating on Rozicki, who kept taking punishment and kept taking punishment, but it was entertaining and it was a great fight. And I think it's clear what should happen next. And Chris Billiam-Smith should just go ahead and fight Jai Opetaia for the Zuffa belt. It seems like that's what they're trying to set up. The winner of this fight, they're going to have that person fight Jai for the Zuffa cruiserweight title. And to me, that makes the most sense. Zuffa boxing exists now, so it's going to be that Jai fights somebody in the Zuffa stable, and I think it makes sense that he fights Chris Billiam-Smith at this point. So it's not a bad fight. I'm happy to watch it. Um, Zuffa politics notwithstanding. The next fight that was important happened in Japan, actually. There was quite a few fights that were important. There was the flyweight champion, Masamichi Ibuki, defeated Rene Calixto. Uh, the super flyweight champion, Willie Baldo Garcia, was defeated by Andrew Maloney in upset and lost his title. There was also a title eliminator in the bantamweight division for the IBF, as well as a fight between Luis Nery and John Riel Casimero. So I'm going to go more in depth onto what was going on with the IBF at the lower weight classes first. Um, First, like I said, Yabuki completed his third successful defense of the flyweight title against Rene Calixto, and Andrew Maloney upset the champion at 115 pounds, Wilibaldo Garcia. So Andrew Maloney is now the super flyweight champion for the IBF. So what I think should happen is Masamichi Ibuki should move up to the super flyweight division and face Andrew Maloney. And hopefully the fact that they're both IBF champions would make this not a very difficult thing to facilitate. But I think that would be a good fight. I don't think Ibuki has anything left to prove in the flyweight division. I think he is clearly the best flyweight. I don't know that he needs to prove that anymore. If he wanted to do unification, that would be fine with me, but I would like to see him move up and face Andrew Maloney. And if he were to defeat Andrew Maloney, I think that sets up a potential for a trilogy with Kenshiro Taraji, which I would absolutely love to see. And that could be a WBO and IBF unification fight. The other fight that happened, which is down at the bottom, was Michael Angeletti. He had won a fight against a Filipino boxer named Kenneth Yover, and he became the mandatory for the IBF bantamweight champion Jose Salas. So you could probably expect to see the two of them fight at some point, or at the very least see Michael Angeletti fight for a bantamweight title at some time in the future. So the thing that happened in the Luis Nery fight was that he got knocked out and knocked down like 5 times by John Riel Casimero. So now there's tons of fans who really want to see Casimero fight Naoya Inoue. Now I'm not like dying to see that fight, but if Inoue did want to do a tune-up, that would be, I guess, fine with me because Inoue obviously had a very difficult fight with Luis Nery. He eventually was able to get the knockout, but the fact that Nery was absolutely blown out of the water by Casemiro has made people kind of. I've seen some ridiculous suggestions that Inoue is ducking Casemiro, which is obviously just completely ridiculous. But uh, if Inoue did want to silence those people and take an easy tune-up fight while he decides what he wants to do next, that would be fine with me, and that would be an easy fight. He's never fought Casemiro, and he's pretty much cleared out the entire super bantamweight division at this point. So I think fighting Casemiro could be a decent tune-up fight. The next fight that happened that was important from a title perspective was Bam moved up from the 115-pound division and he decided to fight Antonio Vargas, who is the WBA champion. There was some weird situation where Sayat Tsutsumi, a Japanese fighter, is the in recess champion or something like that. But Bam was fighting Antonio Vargas for the WBA bantamweight title at 118 pounds. So he was moving up in weight, and it was a super entertaining fight. And Bam is probably my favorite fighter, to be honest with you. Right now, I love watching Bam fight. So I was thrilled to see him get the knockout, and it was kind of a struggle for him at times. Vargas definitely turned the heat on him, but Bam knew how to turn the levels up, and Bam got the knockout. So it was a very entertaining fight from that perspective. I was very happy to see Bam become a three-weight champion and to become a champion at 118 pounds. So that is leading everyone to further clamor for the Inoue Bam mega fight. My opinion is that is I don't necessarily want to see that fight immediately. I definitely think Bam needs at a minimum one more fight at bantamweight, and I really think he should go for at least two. And I'm not even necessarily sure this mega fight is what the best thing for boxing is because I really would like to see Inoue move up to featherweight, and I would really like to see Bam take care of business at bantamweight and fight a lot of the best fighters at 118 pounds, which I think is a great division. It's an entertaining division. So I think trying to rush this Bam Inoue fight brings Bam's stock down a little bit. Where Bam right now could go on a run and he could take care of some really talented fighters at 118 pounds and build his name up even more than just trying to chase this Inoue fight. I understand that's probably the best way to make a lot of money, and a lot of fans would love to see it. And I'm not going to complain if it does get made, but from my perspective, I'd rather see Bam just clean up at 118 pounds and see Inoue go to 126 pounds at featherweight. Problem with that is the featherweight champions are not unifying, and I don't think Inoue is going to. He's just not going to fight Rafael Espinoza for one belt. Like he's not going to. Inoue wants to fight somebody for at least probably two or three or maybe even all four belts. Like we need to see the featherweight champions start unifying. And I don't really know what's exactly going on, who is to blame for that problem, but we need to see the featherweight champions start fighting each other, which is why if the Inoue Bam fight did happen, Inoue's not necessarily able to get the fight he needs to get at featherweight right now anyway. So the Bam fight might be an okay fight in the meantime for that. The John Rail Casimero fight might be an okay fight for Inoue to take in the meantime. But for me, the right thing to do for Bam is to try to clean up at 118, which I'm going to talk about right now. I would like to see Bam fight a lot of the best fighters at 118 pounds. Like Seiya Tsutsumi, he's a fantastic fighter. I think Bam has said he wants to fight Christian Medina, which would be a great fight. He's a great fighter. And Takuma Inoue, great fighter. I'm going to be honest, Jose Salas, I don't know much about, but I would like to see Bam potentially try to go undisputed. And for some reason, I think they're doing a regular WBA title between Riku Masuda and Daigo Higa, which I don't understand why the WBA is insisting on adding so many titles into the mix. But those two are great fighters. So if Bam did want to fight one of them, that'd be a great fight. I think bantamweight is a very strong division. So if Bam chose to fight any of these guys, I would love to see that, and possibly even more than him chasing the Inoue fight. I'd like to see Bam try to go undisputed at 118 pounds. Boxing was kind of dead in like mid to late June, other than once we get to the Boots fight a little bit, and also the Crocker Parle fight. But there was one fight that happened on the 20th between Ryan Garner and Michael Magnesi, I think was his name. And Garner, it was a good fight. I didn't watch the whole thing, I'm gonna be honest. I did catch bits and pieces of it. But Garner won, and I think he became the WBC interim super featherweight champion. So in theory, he's Oshaki Foster's mandatory at some point or another. But Foster said he doesn't really want to take that fight. And I understand that Foster probably is looking for bigger fights, like a unification fight with Navarrete, or a unification fight with Kakachier, or I know he's really talking a lot of crap about Shakur, so maybe him and Shakur fighting will be a bigger fight. And I can understand why someone like Oshaki Foster is looking for big fights at this point in his career. I understand that fact. So I understand if that fight doesn't get made. But Ryan Garner is someone who might be in the mix for title contention in the super featherweight division in the near future. Whether or not Shaq Oshaki gets stripped for not fighting Ryan Garner, or whether or not the fight eventually gets made, or whether or not Oshaki moves up to fight Shakur. I think Ryan Garner is someone we could see with a title at the super featherweight division here. In other news, we also have a new welterweight champion in Liam Paro because he defeated Lewis Crocker in their IBF welterweight title fight that happened in Australia. It was actually a pretty entertaining fight. Paro was winning most of the early rounds, but by the end of it, Crocker was hitting him pretty hard, and he was genuinely just trying to survive. And I think had that fight continued for like a 15 round, I think Liam Paro is probably not the winner. I think Crocker holds on to his title. However, find it hard to really care because I think Patty Donovan is the person who should have been in there. I think Lewis Crocker lost both of his fights to Patty Donovan. So I think Patty Donovan is the person who deserved to be in contention for this title fight. But fortunately, he has won his eliminator fight against Karen Chikadzian, and he is now the mandatory. So he will eventually probably get a fight with Perro in the near future. However, I did see some speculation that perhaps Manny Pacquiao would be back in the mix and would get a fight against Paro. My personal opinion is Manny Pacquiao should probably just retire, but I understand that he probably wants more money or possibly needs more money and is going to continue fighting. So I wouldn't be super surprised if he fought Liam Paro at some point here soon. But my opinion is he should not, and Paddy Donovan should just get back in there, and I would favor him to win that fight and become the new welterweight world champion in the near future. We also got an amazing fight between Xander Zayas and Jerron Boots Ennis, where I think Boots Ennis is now decisively in the top 10 pound for pound boxers in the world. He put a great show on against Xander Zayas, who also put on a respectable effort. But Boots really did decisively beat and finish Xander Zayas. But I do want to give a lot of respect to Xander Zayas for even taking the fight in the first place, because a lot of young fighters are trying to manage their careers very carefully, not take the hardest fights. But this dude, he stepped up when he had the opportunity and took on a very difficult fight, and he came up short. But I do think he still has an extremely bright future ahead of him, and I am very much looking forward to see what he does next in the middleweight division, which is what I think he should do, is move up to 160 pounds and try to get a belt there, hopefully right away. That division is kind of a mess, but we'll get into that here in a second. But obviously, a lot of respect has to be given to Boots, who I think is now probably somewhere in like the 8, 9, 10 range, pound for pound. I think he's better than someone like Jairo Pataya. He's better than someone like Oscar Collazo. He has some really good the wins against Imantis Stanionis and Xander Zayas. I think really set him up as someone who deserves to be in the top 10 discussion, and he definitely passes the eye test as someone who has serious boxing ability, serious power, serious knockout power, and he is a very entertaining fighter. He's right up there with Bam as one of my favorite fighters to watch in the sport. So I was very happy to see him win, and he also won me a lot of money that night. So I was very happy about that one. So like I said, I want to see Zayas move up to middleweight, and the problem with that is this division is just a complete uh, mess. It sucks. Like I said, this guy here, not like I said, this guy here, Janabek, Aleem Kanuli, I think is how you say his name. But anyway, he was stripped of the IBF title for steroids, and now we're having a new champion between Aaron McKenna and Etinosa Aliha, I think is how you say his name. But they're fighting for the middleweight championship in August, I believe, for the IBF. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out because I think either one or both of them is signed with Zuffa Boxing, and I think it's Aaron McKenna, possibly also Aliha is as well. So I don't know how that'll all play out because Jairo Patai was stripped for trying to be the IBF champion and the Zuffa champion. So I don't know. I guess we'll see how that plays out. But for some reason, Janabek was allowed to hold on to his WBO, but since he can't fight for a year, they made this guy Denzel Bentley the interim champion. And I think the expectation is Janabek and Denzel will fight at some point once Janabek can come back. I would like to see Xander get in there with one of them, whichever one of them comes out on top, and hopefully become the middleweight champion. That'd be very entertaining for me to see. I would also be open to seeing him fight Erislandy Lara. I think that's probably the easiest fight to make because, like I'll get into here in a second, the IBF is vacant. The WBO has a situation where it's an interim, and the WBC is Carlos Adames, who says he's going up to super middleweight. So there is a WBC interim guy named Jesus Ramos. So if Xander wants to get a belt immediately, his really only option is to go after Erislandy Lara, who is 42, 43 years old, something like that. And I think Xander would definitely just be too young for him and be too much for him and would beat him. So he could do that, or he could try to wait for an interim champion like Denzel or Jesus. He could try to get a fight with one of them quick, just and then just wait to be upgraded. I don't know. I would like to see him go straight for a title. So I think Arislandi Lara is probably the best fight that can be made for him if that's something that's on the table. But I really have no idea how realistic something like that is. But I do think middleweight is definitely where he should go, and middleweight is a very weak division, so I think he could go very far in this division. I think he'd be the favorite against anyone on the screen other than maybe Janibek and maybe Adames, but like I said, Adames is going up to 168, and I would love to see him fight Janibek. That'd be a great fight. And Janibek used steroids, so I'd be rooting for Zayas to win and become the new middleweight champion in that division. So I have a lot of respect for Zayas stepping up to the plate and taking that fight when he needed to take it, and I think he could still go far in the middleweight division and have a bright future in the sport of boxing. And Boots has a lot of opportunities. There's a wealth of great fighters at 154 pounds. I think the two best fighters who are borderline pound for pound, along with Boots, I think are Sebastian Fundora and Virgil Ortiz, and both of them are looking really, really good. I mean, I guess maybe not pound for pound, but they both are very good fighters in the 154-pound division. And I think the problem is I think it might be a little difficult for Boots to get a fight with either of them right away because Virgil is in a situation where he hasn't fought for a long time because he is in a lawsuit with Golden Boy. It seems like the lawsuit might be dying down, but I have a hard time seeing Virgil jumping straight in against Boots after that long off. So I think Virgil might take a little bit of a tune up, maybe. I guess I don't know for sure, but that's would be my assumption. And Sebastian Fundora was saying that he wants to fight his mandatory, who's this guy. I can't say his name. I don't know, man. Hebrej, something like that. Definitely not right, but something like that. Ermal, I've never heard of this guy, but he's Sebastian Fundora's mandatory. So I don't know. I mean, he must have fought somebody to get that position because the division is stacked. But I do think there are definitely better fights for Fundora. But if he does have to take the mandatory, then he has to take the mandatory. But I definitely want to see Fundora in some unifications ASAP. And the other such champion in the division is Josh Kelly, and he's very much tied up as well because he's got to fight. I think he's fighting this guy Kalamin Agyarko, I believe. Um, and Agyarko was supposed to fight Brandon Adams over here for the mandatory position, but Adams had to pull out because of an illness, I think related to the weight cut. So things got shifted around, and now Murtazaliev, the former champion, will be fighting Adams, I believe, for the Eliminator. I think that's how it's worked out, and Agyarko is just going to fight Josh Kelly for the title. Um, and I think Josh Kelly is likely to win that fight. But that's disregarding the fact that I think Josh Kelly is very lucky to even be champion because I think he really lost to Barka Murtazaliev in their fight. So I think he's very lucky to be champion, and I think that he has a good chance to lose to either Brandon Adams or Murtazaliev once they become his mandatory. So he's very tied up. I don't see him being able to fight Boots because he's got to deal with these three guys, or at least two of these three guys, before he gets a fight with Boots, or at least they got to get paid off before he goes and takes a Boots fight. And I also think, I mean, like, I could see someone with his style giving Boots some trouble, but I don't think he's on the level with Boots or Fundora or Ortiz. I think he would get smoked by them, to be honest with you. I think he's going to struggle to even stay on top against Brandon Adams or Murzalia. I think one of the two of them would likely to beat him, and I don't even really think he beat Murzalia. Uh, whatever, however many months ago that was now, back in the winter time. And then there's some other really good fighters too, like Nikita Zhu, or not Nikita Zhu, Tim Zhu and Errol Spence are fighting in July, so that'll be interesting. I don't think either of them are the best fighter in the world, but they have name recognition, so the winner is probably likely to get their name thrown in the mix for a title at 154 pounds. And there's also a couple other really great fighters. I mean, there's a lot of other really great fighters, but especially people like Israel Madrimov, who gave Terence Crawford his toughest fight, Boss Baru, who's a legitimate challenger, who gave Xander Zayas a tough fight, who gave basically everyone who's ever fought a tough fight. He got a good win against, I think, Yoenis Tellez to win his title before he lost it to Zayas. But it's just a stacked division. So Boots has options. There's lots of people he could fight to stay busy and take quality names to add to his resume. But obviously, the fights everyone wants to see are the unifications. with either Kelly or Fundora. Hopefully, they can get their situations handled and they can unify with Boots. And Virgil Ortiz, who's a great fighter, probably the best fighter in boxing, who's never had a title, I would guess. Yeah, I would love to see Virgil Ortiz. Maybe even Virgil Ortiz versus Fundora would be a great fight too. There's so many good fights in this division. This is, I think, the best division in boxing by far, and I'm really excited to see how this all plays out. Who comes out on top? Uh, I'm rooting for Boots to come out on top because he's probably my favorite fighter in the division. But I don't know. I think Virgil Ortiz will give him a serious tough time. I think Fundora will give him a serious tough time. I think maybe even someone like Israel Madrimov and Josh Kelly style wise are going to give him a tough time. I think there's lots of fun fights that could be made at 154 pounds, and I just really want to see Boots test himself and come out on top in this division. That brings us to the end of the video as far as everything that went down in June. There's a lot of things to look forward to in July, even if it's not, the most exciting stuff in the world. Um, on the 4th, we got Abdullah Mason and Shushu Carrington defending their titles for the first time. Abdullah Mason in the lightweight division and Shushu in the featherweight division. Both of those guys are entertaining fighters. I enjoy watching them a lot, so I'll be watching that fight on the 4th. Um, Murat Gassiev is also now officially, I believe, the WA heavyweight champion because Usyk has vacated the titles. So I'm not exactly sure what's going on because I think he was scheduled to fight Tony Yoka, but he is now injured, I think. I saw speculation he'd be fighting Joe Joyce. I don't really know. I mean, that's kind of a weak fight for a heavyweight title fight. The division is pretty strong right now, and Gassiev and Joyce are not particularly great heavyweight fighters in my opinion. But Gassiev is the WA title holder right now, and I think he will eventually be defeated by whoever gets to unify with him, like Daniel Dubois or Cabiel or uh, maybe even a Talma if he gets there first. But yeah, that's what's happening on the 11th of July, I believe. And then on the 20th, there's a fight happening in Tokyo that'll be pretty good. There's the 108-pound fighter, I think Shokichi Iwata. I definitely said that wrong, and I apologize for that pronuncia pronunciation failure. But that fighter is very good, and he's going to be fighting a guy named Eric Badillo, who's undefeated, and it'll be another quality defense of his 108-pound title. So I'll be watching that for sure. And also, like I said, we got Kenshiro Taraji, who'll be fighting for a vacant 115-pound title that Bam vacated at the WBO. So that'll be really fun to watch. I really hope Kenshiro Taraji can pull it out and become a 115-pound champion. And because he was supposed to get that fight with Willibaldo Garcia way back in December, and that fell through, and he hasn't been able to get a fight. And now he's got a chance to become the 115-pound super flyweight champion. And if, like I said, happened with Masamichi Yabuki, that could set up a potential trilogy between Kenshiro Taraji, Masamichi Yabuki for the unified IBF, WBO super flyweight titles, which would be a great fight and a great fight for Japanese boxing. And we're also seeing a fight between these two guys, Daigo Higa and Riku Masuda, who are great fighters in the bantamweight division. And I think this fight is actually sanctioned as being for the regular WBA bantamweight title, meaning Seiya Tsutsumi is the recess champion and Bam is the super champion, which is ridiculous, and the WBA needs to stop doing that. But both these guys are actually really good fighters, so the winner will be a well-deserving contender to fight Bam or to fight anybody in the bantamweight division for higher titles. And I think both these guys are great fighters. So I'll be watching that Japanese card for sure. They're usually very entertaining, but unfortunately for us Americans, they are on at inconvenient times. There's some other spectacle fights. Anthony Joshua, and also I don't have a picture of it up on screen, but Tyson Fury is also coming back. Both of them are taking less than stellar opponents. Tyson Fury much more so, but I think there's some speculation that Joshua come back. It might have a decent undercard. I don't know. I think potentially Josh Kelly maybe on that undercard. I don't know for maybe at this point it's too short notice for that to be true, but I think there was speculation that that would be true a while ago. Anyway, both those fights are a little bit underwhelming, but also Errol Spence is coming back against Tim Tszyu. And on that card is also the return of Stephen Fulton and Jamal Charlo. So those will be entertaining fights. It's kind of got Australia versus America theme going on. and it'll be entertaining, I think. And I hope Errol Spence is able to pull through and win. I guess is probably my I'm rooting for the USA on this one, but I don't know whether or not he's got anything left or he's got enough left to be a serious threat at 154 pounds. But if he wins this, I'd imagine he's looking at a shot at a title just off name value. So there's a lot to look forward to in the month of July, and there's a lot to look forward to in boxing in general. I know I kind of glossed over this, but I know Shushu has said he's hoping to unify after this defense of his title. So I hope he's being genuine and we can get some unifications. And I hope maybe for Abdullah Mason is able to get some more quality defenses in as well in after his fight in July. But I think this will be a good and exciting month and hopefully exciting rest of the year for boxing. Thanks for watching. And if you guys like this, I'd be happy to continue making more content like this or hopefully continue doing these every month. Thanks.